What we're doing is we're reclaiming the spark of passion that started this creative process in you. And that is the beginning of self-care. Because life has a way of consuming us. We tend to lose focus on the passions that helped us to reflect on the why of our life. And we have a good source to help us kind of look at that and reflect on that. And that is the life of Dr. Viktor Frankl, a favorite of mine. He was a Jewish psychiatrist in Vienna, Austria. He was arrested with his family and placed in a Nazi concentration camp. He lived there until it was liberated, but he lost both of his parents and his pregnant wife. Yet amid all of that suffering, he was able to find meaning in his life. In 1946, he wrote a book called Man's Search for Meaning, and I recommend you read it. He concluded that finding meaning was more important than seeking happiness. This is kind of like a hammy thing I did, but I put together a business card for myself, and this is one of his quotes from his book, and it's wonderful. I love it. Everything can be taken from a person, but one thing, the last of human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given circumstance, to choose one's way. Makes sense in the context of where he was and what he went through. So, meaning or happiness, which one is more important? So if we focus on meaning instead of happiness, what do we do when things get messy, when they get derailed or sidetracked? Life is replete with all kinds of curveballs, right? So here's a great illustration of anything that you're doing in life, right? Whether it's a relationship or a project or getting a degree or whatever. And the top part of our slide up here is the way that we try to imagine the way the world should be, right? Point A to point B, right? Real simple. The messy part at the bottom is reality. Dr. Aaron Beck, who is the father of cognitive therapy, would look at this slide and would note that the upper part is unrealistic and will result in emotional distress and disappointment as we'll fail to meet those expectations. We'll hope it'll be that way, and usually what it is the lower part of the slide, right? So now comes a moment where we're going to shift a little bit. We'll go back to the slide in just a second, but this is our moment in Jeopardy. This is your Jeopardy question for the day. Who said this? Okay, and this is Leon C. Megerson. He was a professor of business administration, taught in an MBA program, and Charles Darwin. It is not the strongest of the species that survives, nor the most intelligent. It is the one most adaptable to change. Keep that in mind, adaptation to change. So, of course, Charles Darwin never said this. It was Leon C. Megerson. And the thing about the work of Megerson is that is based very much on Darwin's research. So when we go back to our slide again, adaptation, the ability to compensate for all of these hurdles that we have to go through, the whitewater rapids, the mountain climbing, the climbing out of the ladder, all of those kinds of things, the difficulties that life brings us. We need to apply that adaptive capacity. Here's a good example. Have you ever had a student that you're working with and at some point in time in the course of educating them, you encounter their parents and you kind of scratch your head and go, how did that kid come out of those two? Okay. Might be someone who's a prodigy or just really adept at things, and you have parents who have like no education and no understanding of music or any kind of technical issues at all, and yet somehow they have raised this child that is just exemplary. Okay. Well, what they have done is they have raised the child in an environment of resilience. Okay. You don't have to be educated to understand how to do the bottom half of the slide. You just have to have the ability to create the environment where that kind of survival process happens. So when you have a kid that learns resilience building skills and grows up in that kind of an environment, everything else they're going to learn on their own, because what you've taught them how to do is solve problems.